The morning was crisp, the kind that made the world feel cleaner than it really was. Early sunlight sliced through the mist hanging low over the neighborhood dog park, painting the dew-covered grass in gold. My boots left faint impressions in the soft earth as Max trotted beside me, tail wagging with lazy enthusiasm. He was always like this, unbothered, peaceful, a calming presence in a life that had seen too much noise lately. Max, my golden retriever, was the kind of dog who'd rather roll over for a belly rub than bark at a stranger. A gentle giant. At 7 years old, he'd spent more time comforting me than chasing squirrels. After my divorce, he was the only soul I could rely on to greet me with joy at the end of every day. That morning, we walked our usual loop along the gravel path, past the swings, under the sycamores that lined the back fence of the park. Everything felt normal until the scream shattered it. A shrill, piercing cry sliced through the air, sharp, enough to silence even the birds. I spun around in time to see a woman crumpled on the grass near the bench, clutching her leg like she'd been hit by a car. Max froze beside me, ears perked. The woman's eyes locked on him, wide, accusatory, filled with something that felt too theatrical to be pain. Your dog attacked me," she wailed, voice trembling, but just slightly offbeat, like a note played a second too early. "He came at me like a monster!" I blinked. "What?" She gestured wildly at Max, her face contorted with horror. "That dog bit me! I was just walking by and he lunged. You need to control your animal." Max was still standing at my side, confused, head tilted. His tail gave one uncertain wag. A couple of joggers stopped. A mother with a stroller edged closer. Within moments, a small crowd formed around the woman who now had tears in her eyes and dirt on her yoga pants. She looked maybe mid-40s, aggressively. Blonde hair pulled into a taut ponytail, lip gloss smeared from what I assumed was her dramatic tumble. "I didn't even see him coming," she gasped, holding her shin like it had been shredded. He just pounced. I knelt slightly, voice calm. "Ma'am, Max hasn't left my side. I don't know what you think happened, but he didn't touch you." "Oh, really?" she spat, now angling her phone to take pictures. "Maybe I should just call animal control then. See what they have to say." "Go ahead," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I felt that cold knot of worry start to form. She was dialing before I could say more, sobbing into the phone. "Yes, I need to report a vicious dog attack. Yes, I'm injured. He bit. Me. No, I didn't provoke it." She snapped photos of Max, of me, then turned her phone on the crowd. "I want witnesses," she declared, voice rising. "I want this dangerous animal out of this park." I took a cautious step forward. "Look, I'm sorry you fell or tripped or whatever happened, but you're making a serious accusation. There's no bite, no blood. Are you calling me a liar?" she shrieked, eyes blazing. I looked down at her leg. Her yoga pants had a smudge of grass and dirt, but no tear, no visible wound. "I'm saying I think you're mistaken." She recoiled like I'd slapped her. "You people always think you can get away with everything." "You people?" I asked, but she turned away and began whispering to another onlooker, shaking her head as if traumatized. I could already feel the shift in the crowd. No one wanted to say anything, but uncertainty lingered in their eyes. And then the police arrived. 2 officers approached, one already flipping open a small notepad. Karen, because that's what she had to be, right? Suddenly found her tears. Again. "I was just walking to my car, minding my business," she began, breath hitching in perfect rhythm. "And this dog came running at me." I didn't even have time to scream before he tackled me. The officer's gaze flicked to Max, then to me. "Sir, is your dog licensed?" I nodded and produced his tags. "Yes, and leashed." He never touched her. "Ask anyone who was here." But Karen cut in again, louder. "He charged me, bit my leg. He could have killed me." Max sat down calmly, tongue hanging out, completely unfazed by the chaos erupting around him. The younger officer bent down, slightly. "Ma'am, may I see where the dog bit you?" Karen hesitated, eyes flicking toward the crowd. "He bit through my pants. I haven't looked yet, but I'm sure it's bad." I crossed my arms. "Then show them." She pulled back the fabric just slightly, revealing a perfectly unbroken stretch of skin. Maybe a faint red mark at best, more like a bruise from hitting the ground than any bite. Still, she sniffled dramatically. "He's a big dog. I'm probably in shock. I want to press charges." The officers exchanged a glance. One of them stepped aside to speak with dispatch on his radio. The other turned back to me. "Until we figure out what happened, animal control will need to hold the dog for a short period." "What? He didn't do anything." "It's temporary," the officer replied flatly. "Standard procedure when there's an injury report." Max looked up at me, as if asking whether we were still going for breakfast after. My stomach turned. Karen had her phone out again. "Make sure they take pictures," she said to the officers. "And his name." "What's your name?" I ignored her, too focused on Max being loaded into the back of an animal control vehicle. He didn't resist. Of course he didn't. Just looked back at me through the mesh screen, confused. Betrayed. The park was silent now. The crowd was dispersing. No one defended me. No one said, "I saw it." The dog didn't touch her. Maybe they were scared of her. Or maybe they just didn't want to get involved. Karen gave me a smug little smile as she limped away toward her Lexus. I realized in that moment that this wasn't over. Not even close. And Max? He was just the first victim. Because this wasn't about a bite that never happened. It was about control. And she thought she had it. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. The house felt unbearably silent without Max. His empty bed in the corner of the living room looked more like a tomb than a cozy resting spot. I kept catching myself listening for the familiar jingling of his tags or the soft thump of his tail against the couch, only to be met with stillness. The place felt colder somehow, less alive. I hadn't realized how much of my daily rhythm depended on that dog, until someone tried to rip him out of my life with a lie. I spent the night replaying everything in my head. The scream, the crowd, the accusation. It didn't add up. Max was beside me the entire time. There was no bite, no charge, not even a bark. Yet Karen had woven a story so effortlessly that even the cops leaned into protocol instead of logic. She wasn't just manipulative, she was practiced. By morning, the situation had already worsened. A friend texted me a link to the local Facebook group. The headline on Karen's post read, "Attacked by a dangerous dog. Please share to protect others." Below it was a photo of Max mid-stride, cropped to make him look like a lunging predator. The caption painted me as an irresponsible owner, and Max as a ticking time bomb. I scrolled through the comments, my stomach twisting. He should be put down. Period. People like that shouldn't be allowed to own animals. I hope she sues. No excuse for letting your dog off leash. I wanted to scream. He was leashed. He didn't attack her. But the more I read, the clearer it became. Public opinion didn't need evidence. just a compelling story. And Karen had spun hers perfectly. I closed my laptop and grabbed my jacket. I wasn't going to sit around and watch my best friend be slandered into a cage. There had to be someone, something, that could help me prove what really happened. The dog park was quieter than usual when I returned, almost like the place was holding its breath. A few familiar faces avoided eye contact as I walked by. Others gave polite nods, quickly turning back to their dogs. I spotted Linda near the benches, the one who always brought her 2 dachshunds in matching sweaters. She gave me a cautious smile. "Hey," I started, keeping my tone even. "You were here yesterday, right?" She hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. "I saw parts of it. I didn't see the dog actually bite her." "But you didn't see him not bite her either," I finished for her. "I just don't want to get involved," she muttered, then quickly whistled for her dogs and walked off. That was the theme of the day. People were sympathetic, but distant. No one wanted to challenge Karen. I heard it whispered now. Karen. That's what people were calling her behind her back. They knew her reputation, and yet fear of retaliation kept them silent. I wasn't surprised. She had a way of making trouble stick. As I made my second lap around the park, I noticed someone sitting alone on a bench near the back fence, an older man, maybe in his 70s, with a windbreaker zipped up to his chin and a worn baseball cap pulled low. He had a controller in his lap and a small drone case beside him. I remembered seeing him before, always quietly flying that drone overhead, tracking its flight with hawk-like focus. I approached carefully. "Morning." He looked up, squinting. "You the guy with the golden?" "Yeah." Max. His brow furrowed. "That was a load of nonsense yesterday." "You saw it?" "Sort of," he said, then tapped his drone case. "More accurately, I might have recorded it." My pulse skipped. "Are you serious?" He nodded slowly. "I fly every morning. Got a pattern I follow. Whole park's in view. I wasn't paying attention to your side until I heard the yelling. But it's possible the drone caught the whole thing." I nearly laughed, from the sheer relief punching through me. "Can I see it?" "Gotta pull the footage when I get home," he said. "Battery was dying. But yeah, I'll check. If I got it, I'll send it your way." "Thank you," I said, heart pounding. "You might have just saved my dog's life." He gave a slow nod, like he already understood the weight of it. "Name's Joe, by the way." I shook his hand. "Daniel." I left the park feeling something I hadn't in days. Hope. Real, tangible hope. If that drone footage showed what I thought it did, Karen faking the entire incident, collapsing without cause, then this nightmare could end. Maybe not immediately, but it would give me leverage. Something solid to fight back with. But as I walked back to my car, a new notification buzzed on my phone. Another post from Karen, this time tagging the HOA's official page. "We need to keep our neighborhoods safe. I've filed a formal request to ban dangerous dogs and their negligent owners from the community. Our lives depend on it." Attached was a blurry selfie of her holding a tissue to her leg and a bottle of ibuprofen. The theatrics were never-ending, and then came the blow that truly set my blood boiling. A formal email from a local attorney. Karen had filed a personal injury claim against me, alleging emotional trauma, permanent nerve damage, and a loss of income due to canine-induced stress. The suit wasn't just frivolous, it was personal. She wasn't content to see Max punished. She wanted to destroy us both. The letter included a line that stood out like a dagger. "Client is also requesting the dog be permanently removed from the premises pending litigation." That was it. Karen wasn't just manipulating the story, she was escalating it, framing herself as the martyr while casting me and Max as villains. And unless I could prove she was lying, she might actually win. But she made one mistake. She thought she was the smartest one in the room. She had no idea what was coming. The moment Joe sent me the footage, I knew this was my shot. He'd even attached a time-stamped file, the clarity of the drone footage so precise it could have been taken from a surveillance camera. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen, unable to believe what I was seeing. It was almost too perfect. Max, in all his golden retriever glory, walked calmly beside me, exactly as I'd described. No lunge, no growl, no attack. Just a dog being a dog. But what caught my attention most was Karen's dramatic performance, the way she exaggerated her fall. She had collapsed in a way that made it look like she'd been hit by a freight train. But the footage told a different story. There was no sign of Max even approaching her, let alone touching her. It was all a fabrication. I replayed the clip over and over, watching her rise to her feet, clutching her leg in an almost comically over-the-top manner, looking straight at the camera, as though she knew exactly where it was. She'd calculated this. Every movement, every tear, every word. It was all a setup. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes for a moment, the weight of the situation finally settling on my shoulders. This was going to be harder than I thought. Karen wasn't going to back down easily. Not with the lies she'd already spread. But I had evidence now. Solid proof. If I was going to clear Max's name, I had to play this carefully. One wrong move, and it could be over. I saved the footage and drafted an email to Joe, thanking him profusely. Then I turned to the next part of my plan. I needed more than just this video. I needed witnesses, someone who could corroborate what I saw and what the footage showed. But people in this town, they were scared of Karen. I had learned that much by now. There was only one person left who I thought might help. Her name was Claire, and she worked at the local animal shelter. She wasn't a friend, but we'd met a few times over the years. I had volunteered with a few rescue groups in the past, and Claire had always seemed grounded, fair, and honest. I didn't know her well, but I knew she didn't scare easily. I called her that afternoon. When she answered, her voice was warm, but I could hear the hesitation in her tone when I explained the situation. "I'm not sure what you expect me to do, Daniel," she said, "but if you're right, and Karen's making all this up, it's going to get ugly. She's not the type to just let this go." "I know, but I've got something that proves Max didn't do anything wrong," I said, my voice tight. "The footage from a drone. It shows everything. I need your help to back me up." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "This is big, Daniel. She's already got her hooks in everywhere. Her friends at the HOA, her lawyer. They'll go after you if you take a stand." "I don't care," I said, my voice firmer now. "I've got to clear Max's name. I need witnesses, people who aren't afraid of her." Another pause. But this time it was thoughtful, deliberate. "I'll think about it. Let me make a few calls. I'll see what I can do. But if you're right about Karen, and I think you are, this could escalate quickly." "I know," I said. "But I'm done waiting." Claire agreed to meet me the next day at the shelter. When I arrived, she was sitting behind the desk, her face more serious than I'd ever seen it. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I've got some people on your side, but this is dangerous. You're not just fighting her now. You're fighting her image. She's got everyone convinced she's the victim. You know that, right?" I nodded, feeling a wave of frustration build up. "I don't care what she convinces them. I just need the truth to come out. You saw me with Max. You know what he's like. He's not a threat. Claire studied me for a moment, her expression unreadable. I've worked with a lot of people like Karen. She's got a lot of influence in this town. But I'll help you. I know what's at stake here. We'll make sure you get the evidence you need. I didn't realize how much I needed her support until she said those words. It wasn't just about clearing Max's name anymore. It was about standing up to someone who thought she could destroy everything without consequence. Over the next few days, Claire and I worked in the shadows. She contacted a few of the shelter's volunteers, people who had witnessed Karen's earlier outbursts and had always thought something was off about her. One by one, they agreed to help, some more reluctantly than others, but they were all afraid of the power Karen had in the community. Some even warned me to be careful. Karen didn't just fight with her fists. She used her connections to tear people apart. But I couldn't back down now. Not when Max was counting on me. The pressure was starting to mount. Karen's attorney had already sent another letter, demanding I hand over all evidence of Max's behavior, along with a hefty sum for damages. Her posts were more frequent now, spinning a web of half-truths, making her out to be a helpless victim at the mercy of an unhinged dog. But the more she pushed, the more people started to question her version of events. I didn't know it yet, but the tide was beginning to turn. People were starting to talk, and Karen's web was starting to unravel. That night, I got a call from Joe. "The footage is clear," he said, his voice calm but filled with an edge of excitement. "There's no way anyone can claim Max did anything. I've reviewed it again and again. It's exactly what you said. It's all there. I didn't need to hear anything else. This was it. I had the proof, and now all I had to do was wait for the right moment to use it." But as I hung up, something gnawed at me. Karen wouldn't go down without a fight. If she had anything else in her arsenal, I was about to find out. The following days felt like an endless game of chess, each move I made countered by Karen's relentless tactics. Her posts grew bolder, more inflammatory. The community, once divided in whispered uncertainty, now rallied behind her, convinced by her portrayal of herself as a victim of a savage attack. Her Facebook page, already filled with her sob stories and tear-streaked photos, was now a battleground of outraged neighbors demanding justice for the woman who had suffered so much. But Karen made a crucial mistake. Her arrogance blinded her to the fact that people were starting to question her version of events. The more she escalated, the more people saw the cracks in her story. I wasn't the only one who was starting to push back. A handful of neighbors, quietly watching from the sidelines, were beginning to share their own accounts. Stories of Karen's temper, her tendency to exaggerate situations, and her history of using her victim status to manipulate those around her. I met with Claire again, our resolve hardening. "We can't just sit back anymore," she said, leaning over the table in the back of the shelter, her eyes intense. "It's time to expose her for who she really is." I agreed. We had to act fast before Karen could strike again. But there was one last thing I needed. One final piece to complete the puzzle. The footage. The drone footage had shown Max was innocent, but it hadn't shown Karen's performance in its entirety. I needed to show how she had staged the entire fall, how she had pretended to be injured in a way that was beyond belief. Joe had already promised to send the full footage, but I wasn't sure it would be enough. The public needed to see her as she was, a manipulative, calculating liar. To make that happen, I needed a more immediate, personal approach. That evening, I set up a meeting with the HOA. I had already spoken with several of the board members over the phone, and they were sympathetic to my cause. The board had long been uncomfortable with Karen's behavior, but had been afraid of confronting her head-on. I was about to change that. The meeting room was silent as I stood in front of the board, a few familiar faces among the group of concerned neighbors. My palms were sweating, but I kept my voice steady as I spoke. I'm not here to beg for mercy. I'm here to ask for justice. What Karen is doing to me and Max is wrong, and it's based on lies. I have evidence, clear, undeniable proof, that she fabricated this entire incident. I watched as the board members exchanged uneasy glances, their discomfort palpable. Karen's reputation loomed large in the room, and for many of them, the idea of challenging her seemed impossible, but they had no idea what I had prepared. With a single click, I projected the footage onto the large screen. The drone's sharp focus was mesmerizing, capturing the moments with chilling clarity. There was Max, calmly walking beside me, oblivious to the spectacle Karen was about to create. Then the footage froze, just as Karen, in the middle of her dramatic fall, looked directly into the lens of the camera. The deliberate positioning of her body, the way she exaggerated her movements, it was all there. I let the footage play out in silence, letting the weight of it sink in. I could hear a few murmurs from the board members, but it wasn't until the clip showed Karen glancing knowingly at the drone, as though aware she was being filmed, that the room's atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, the board members were on edge. This wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. It was manipulation on an epic scale. I turned to the board, my voice calm but resolute. She wasn't attacked. She staged the whole thing from start to finish, and she's been using her influence to twist the truth. I've got more witnesses, and I'll make sure the public sees this for what it is. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then one of the board members, a woman who had always seemed neutral, stood up. I think it's time we had a serious conversation about Karen's role in this community. The floodgates had opened. One by one, the board members voiced their support, agreeing that Karen's actions were unacceptable. The meeting quickly turned into a roundtable discussion, where even those who had been hesitant to speak out began to express their concerns. By the end of the night, the board had agreed to take immediate action. Karen's attempts to manipulate. The community had gone too far, and they would be investigating the matter further. But just as I thought the battle was won, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Claire. Karen's posted something new. You need to see this. I opened the message, and my stomach sank. Karen had uploaded another video, a rebuttal, she claimed. The thumbnail showed her sitting in front of a pile of medical papers and a doctor's note. Her voice trembled as she recounted the horrific experience, claiming her injuries were so severe she'd been unable to work for weeks. She even went as far as to show a scar on her leg, carefully hidden beneath a bandage. She was trying to turn the narrative in her favor once again. But I didn't panic. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the perfect opportunity to expose her for what she truly was. I shared the footage I had from Joe, but this time, I didn't just rely on the video. I posted an edited version, highlighting her knowing glance toward the drone camera, making sure to capture her subtle smirk as she fell. The side-by-side comparisons of her exaggerated injury claims and the drone footage were undeniable. Within hours, the comments began to flood in. People were outraged. It wasn't just the footage anymore, it was the sheer audacity of Karen's manipulation. The narrative was shifting. The once sympathetic followers began to turn on her. Her video, once a well-crafted tale of victimhood, became her undoing. The final blow came when a local news station reached out. They had seen the viral videos and wanted to cover the story. Karen's lies had gone too far, and now the truth was out in the open. By the time the broadcast aired, Karen had vanished from the public eye, her reputation in tatters. The community she once ruled with fear had turned their backs on her, and Max, my loyal companion, was finally free from the shadow of her lies. I leaned back in my chair, exhausted but satisfied. Justice had been served, and it had come at a cost. But it was worth it. The moment I'd stood up for Max, the moment I'd fought for the truth, was the moment Karen's reign of manipulation had ended. And as I looked over at Max, his golden fur glistening in the soft light, I knew we'd won together.